Welcome to Human School. I'm your host, Dr. Patil Armenian. After 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, and 2 years of fellowship, I thought I was done. I did my time, got my degrees, and now I was just gonna live life. Well, think again. Some of my greatest schooling has come after my formal education was complete, and it keeps on coming. Join me at Human School, where we can learn together. I'm an emergency physician and medical toxicologist working at a large teaching hospital in California. I'm also a mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend. Whether you work in healthcare or not, you too lead a busy life. Together, let's work on how we can thrive in all of our real-world roles. Please listen, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Follow me on Instagram at Human School Podcast, and feel free to let me know what topics or guests you want to hear about. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate and review it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Human School. Last week marked my 20th year in emergency medicine. So 20 years since I started intern year, and really from that moment on, you're in the emergency medicine family and you consider yourself an ER doctor. So 20 years, I can't believe it. I feel like I really didn't know that much when I decided to do emergency medicine, and then just kind of got in there, went along with it, and I'm really happy that I did, because looking back now, I really know that I picked the right medical specialty for me. And I just wanted to talk about that today and what I've learned being an ER doctor in the last 20 years, changes I've seen in emergency medicine and the practice of emergency medicine. But I feel like I've hit a real milestone along with some of my close friends, people who remain friends like family to this day. And I guess really at the end of it, that's what the emergency department does. It just trauma bonds you for life with certain people. A couple of weekends ago, I got to spend time with a big group of ER doctors and their families that I love. And it was just so cool knowing that, you know, when you work together, you go through all this stuff together, that you kind of make friends for life. So what has changed in the last 20 years? I feel like a lot has changed and also a lot hasn't. I think a lot has changed both regionally and in the practice of emergency medicine, but also a lot hasn't. I mean, we're still doing the same things of trying to deal with anything that comes through your door, taking care of people the best you can, and really just working nonstop while also trying to have a little bit of fun and have a little bit of a sick sense of humor along the way. I live and work in Fresno, California. The ER that I have spent most of my career now at is called Community Regional Medical Center. And I love my ER. And I've noticed a lot of things around us. I mean, regionally, I work in a city that just outside the city, everything is really rural. And so a lot of rural hospitals around us over the last 20 years have closed, which has definitely added to our volume, but also our population has grown, and that's added to our volume as well. And in emergency medicine, we refer to a lot of numbers like patients per year. So what's your volume is your patients per year. And that has really grown, not just for me specifically where I work, but in all emergency departments across the country. Contrary to popular belief, it's not because of uninsured patients or people that are trying to use the system or anything like that. It's really everyone. And it's across the board. Part of it is because people have a hard time getting timely healthcare from their primary care providers. Part of it is because they have true emergencies. But the bottom line is emergency department volumes have gone up everywhere, and they've gone up where I worked too. I think we're one of the busiest, if not the busiest, emergency department in California. And we definitely feel the hit when people do get their access to healthcare cut, when rural hospitals close down, which are genuine things that I'm very concerned about moving forward in the United States. Other things that have changed, I would say for the worst, I'll start with some bad things, but boarding has increased. So what is boarding? Boarding is when somebody is sick enough to need to be admitted to the hospital, but then there's no bed for them upstairs. So they stay in the ER, sometimes for days. This is really difficult for patients and also for the doctors, nurses, PAs, and NPs taking care of them. It's difficult all around because we can't take care of the new sick ER patients coming in properly. And then also, these are admitted patients that need different types of care, need a calm environment to heal, all these things that they don't get. So boarding has increased across the whole of the United States. And in my emergency department, we used to board, let's say, 50 to 60 inpatients at any given time, which is a lot, by the way. That's a lot of beds, but it's even worse now. It's double that. And when it's like that, we actually can't function properly. And so it makes it really difficult. And so it's something that hospital administrations really need to work on and keep an eye on so that not only do patients do better, but everybody working there also has better job satisfaction and are doing the jobs that they are best at. Something that is a real core tenet of emergency medicine is not just that we take care of emergencies, like somebody breaks something, get into a car accident, they're having a heart attack. It's not just that, but we also are really, I would say, present and aware and awake and are the canaries in the coal mine. We see what's going on around us. We see what's going on in the hospitals, and often we're the ones that try to fix things. So one of the things that has also happened in the last 20 years is that we have created models of triage that are more efficient than before. So let me just put it in perspective. Back when I was in training, when I was a resident, patients would come, they would check in, a triage nurse would quickly, ask why they're there, check them out, get vital signs, and then determine if they're sick enough to be in kind of the rooms with the really sick patients where we do see them very quickly, or if they're okay to wait. Now, that wait process was the process for most people. And sometimes patients would wait for, I'm talking 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours to be seen by a provider, which is mind-boggling. I remember being a resident and going and seeing patients that had already been waiting 8 hours to be seen by me. And then I still had to see them and present to my attending physician. My department specifically is actually really cool. I love my ER. I've been here for a long time, but we were one of the first people in the country to say, that is not right. Patients should not be waiting that long. Things should get started quicker. We need to improve this process. And all the way back in 2009 or 10, when I was a resident, we started experimenting with the first models of this concept of provider at triage. So now that's where you have a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a PA, or any combination of those out at triage to see patients and to really get the process going. And we do that all the time now. It's actually a process we've really streamlined. We even have our residents kind of going through that to learn how to do it. But it is really key to take care of people properly and quickly, instead of waiting for someone to go back into a room for a provider to talk to them, examine get their story. We've just decided, yes, we will, as providers, go out to the waiting room and talk to people, examine them, get everything going, because we can't let physical space define us and what we do. And so, some of the old guard are still in that mindset of, well, we only see patients in rooms. You have to be in a room so that we can get everything started and do everything. But when you have volumes that far exceed your room capacity, then you have to get creative. And in emergency medicine, we are really good at being creative. So provider at triage, I believe, is a necessity in this day and age. And our patients love it, are left without being seen rates. So that's when somebody checks into the ER and then they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to do it, leave. Those are really important numbers, and ours are really low because we do this and then we can find things that are really wrong in people that we have to deal with quickly and really take care of them better. So that's been a big change, I would say, in just the process of working in the emergency department. Some other things I've really noticed is actually, I would say we're a lot kinder to each other. I went through a lot of, I guess you would call it hazing now when I was a resident, but those days are over. I would say people overall are much kinder to each other, and those that are in training now still work extremely hard. I know every generation likes to say oh, we walked up hills in the snow both ways. It was so much harder. I don't think so. Our residents, our students are working really hard and doing great work. And I love being around them and seeing that and helping them be their best selves. Also in emergency medicine, I will say the wins are amazing. The wins, like those big wins of someone came in dying, you saved their life, right? That's like the biggest win. So when you get those big wins, those will keep you going for a really long time, and savor those. But if you think emergency medicine is all those big wins or major emergencies, then unfortunately you're in for a rude awakening. It's really about the little moments. And those little moments can be really beautiful, really gratifying, really satisfying. And some people don't want to see those little moments. They don't recognize those as the valuable parts of emergency medicine, but I think that they really are. And lately, when I ask my friends, tell me one good thing from your last shift, it is often something like, I had a really great interaction with a consultant that has been really mean to other people in the past. I hate to say it, but that's a thing for us dealing with consultants. Or that one person recently said, I was able to sit down and actually explain something to a patient and really have her understand it that I don't think she had ever understood before about their own bodies, their own disease process. And sometimes it is a badass procedure or a crazy diagnosis that you made and no one else did. It's all of that. It's all of it. And that's the thing about working in a place like the ER. It's from every little thing to the biggest thing, all combined, all under one roof, all happening at the same time. And I think the key is that you just have to be awake and alert and aware to see all the wins and, good things happening around you, because it is not going to be all the big dramatic things. And you know what? That's okay, because I have also had stretches of time where I only have the big dramatic things nonstop. And guess what? That can get really tiring, because for every big dramatic win, there's also death and just the extremes. So I would say you really have to try to find the kind of the wins and the beauty in all the pieces of it. So something else that I think about a lot is that as emergency physicians, emergency nurses, we're really aware of a lot of systems things and a lot of truly what's going on around us. And we are fixers. We like to fix things. So we keep fixing a lot of things while others, especially, I've noticed others in other departments in a hospital maybe, or hospital administration, remain stagnant. And so sometimes I think as emergency providers, are we our own downfall? Because we tend to fix so many things. We're such MacGyvers, fixing things all the time that others don't see. I don't know, are we doing too good of a job so that you guys don't see what we're doing to stay afloat over here? These are the things that kind of pop into my head. Now, I don't want to act like all of emergency medicine is awesome. I'm going to talk about some of the cons that I've noticed throughout the years. And then I'm going to get back into the pros because, again, I would not have chosen any other specialty. And I consider myself really lucky to be able to do what I do. But some of the cons, again, boarding. So having patients that are admitted to the hospital that are just staying in the emergency department because there are no beds for them upstairs, in the rest of the hospital. This is really hard for everyone, for doctors, nurses, patients. Especially the patients, and a lot of boarding happens in hallways. And so imagine just being in a hallway for a couple days. That's exhausting. And your body can't really heal when you can't sleep, you can't rest. This is just a normal way of how the body works. And then, I think about our nurses. Our nurses want to be ER nurses. They didn't apply for an inpatient nursing job, which, we have so many awesome inpatient nurses. And all of these are different styles of working, different personality styles. We want people to really do the job that they want to do the most, that they're trained to do. Why does this matter? It makes it so that none of the departments work. The whole hospital doesn't have proper flow if your entrance is blocked. The ER is traditionally the entrance of how you get into a hospital. It's either that or, surgeries that are scheduled or deliveries happening in labor and delivery. But the ER is a big entry portal for the hospital. And so when that's clogged, the whole place doesn't function well and your ancillary departments can't function well. So that's when you have things happen like you got to wait 6 hours to get a CAT scan done, or you have to wait X number of hours to get blood drawn on a patient and get it analyzed in the lab. Every single piece doesn't work as well as it should when you don't have patients able to leave the department. Now, I work in an academic setting. I did spend 2 years where I worked at Kaiser Oakland when I was living in the Bay Area. But after that, I've really been in the academic setting the whole time. So I'm an academic emergency physician, but I happen to work in an ER where our volume is actually too high for residents to see everyone. So actually, about half of our patients are seen by advanced practice providers like NPs and PAs and by the attendings directly. So I still get to see my own patients. So I'm like academic, but I would say not like an ivory tower academic where I no longer know how to take care of a patient. I don't know how to do things. I don't know how things work. It's like, I'm in it, guys. I'm in it. So I get to really experience all the sides. I will say some of the things that I mentioned, kindness has increased, but rudeness is still there. And who is being rude to us but patients? You should see the way sometimes patients talk to us, all of us, every type of staff member in the emergency department. And it's like, we're all working hard. Let's try to be nice. And then a big part of emergency medicine is actually figuring out what else a patient needs. Do they need a consultant from a specific specialty? And we are calling consultants all the time for various things, whether that is, to be admitted to the hospital or for a surgery or anything, right? By and large, I would say consultants are fairly, kind and understanding, but there are rude consultants. And actually, you would be surprised at what emergency providers have to deal with. And in an academic setting, I've noticed that resident consultant rudeness is the worst. When people are in training, they're tired, they're just frazzled from living at the hospital. And so they can be, unfortunately, really mean to each other. And so when you do come across somebody who is just like a really nice consultant, we just try to coddle them, do everything they want, make them happy because we want them to stay that way. But it is really a thing to deal with. And I think the most important thing I could say is, you don't really know what's going on in someone else's day. And so when we call them, we don't know what they're in the middle of. And so I would say just try to transmit information as best as you can and always be cordial back. I've noticed over the years that even if I call someone and they are really crusty sounding right off the bat, if I just stay cool and calm and nice, it usually melts away. The last thing to do is to immediately just snap right back at someone. That's like a last resort method when you have something you really need and are not getting it done. But that is a big part of the specialty, just speaking to other people, knowing what a patient needs, and somehow through your discussions with other people, getting those things done. And it is a real art. And then when the right thing happens and you have like cordial, nice discussions, it really does feel like a great win. Something that's different about emergency medicine as a specialty, which I did not understand, going in, I had no idea, but it's the whole concept of shift work. I only knew doctors as they have an office or, they go do surgeries and then also have an office, but I did not really understand the concept of shift work. I just knew I liked the ER and then I applied and I matched. I knew very little about the whole concept of shift work, but emergency medicine is shift work. And I have to say, I love it. But what that means is that our shifts can be during weird times. It doesn't mean that it's going to be great for your family. Your family is always going to have a hard time understanding your schedule. It takes a long time to get family members who are not in medicine to understand our weird schedules. And even to this day, I share my shift schedule, for example, with my husband. Otherwise, he would never know when I'm working and when I'm not. Shift schedules can isolate you from family and friends. You will be working when most people are off. And then a lot of times you're off when most normal people are at work. So if you're like, oh, I can have lunch with you, or they're like, I'm at work. What are you talking about? And if you live in a different city, it does make it even harder. I live 3 hours away from most of my family, and it's actually really hard for me to see them as often as I would like, even though 3 hours doesn't sound like such a long time, but it gets difficult. And then when we're at work, like when you are a shift worker and you're at work, especially as a physician, we don't have breaks. So that is really, I think, weird. For example, I know our nurses have breaks, but on the provider end, we don't really have designated breaks except if the place you work has done that. But I've never really worked in a place that had breaks. And so we're just on. Like when you're on, you get a little break to, go to the bathroom, get food, you tell someone, okay, I'll be back in 10 minutes, but it's not like a real break. And so we don't have downtime. That means we can't really do a 40-hour work week. It is very intense. You're alert, that whole time. Any hospital that wants emergency physicians to have a 40-hour work week staffing model For example, like I know Kaiser used to, I don't know if they still do, but that is not an appropriate model for emergency medicine. We actually need more time to decompress because we are so on when we're on. I like to say sometimes, my 8-hour shift feels like a 12-hour workday, for example. It just feels different. We just don't get those breaks that other specialties do. And you know what? We're all working hard. So if you're in a different specialty, it's like you're working hard too. We're all working hard in modern medicine. And then the other thing is that during a shift, you are not going to have time to process the horrible things that you might have to deal with, right? I mean, it is a life and death specialty. Sometimes it is. That is what emergency medicine is. And it's like core crystalline self. And you are not going to really have time to deal with that. I mean, you might be able to get a little breather. I like to wash my hands real slowly after someone dies and think about it. But you have to move on to the next thing. You don't know what's coming in. So make sure that you give yourself time later to process things or you will burn out. And that is something that I've really learned how to do, I would say pretty well in the last 20 years is when you have some really awful shit happen, how are you going to deal with that? How do you process it? And I can do like a whole episode on that, but I have a multi-step process of how I process those things. It is something that wasn't really brought up when I was in training, and I've really had to learn myself over the years, and now I try to impart that to other people, but you have to figure out your process because it is too hard. Your regular day can be the worst day of somebody else's life, and it is a place of privilege to be able to support them through that and provide the best possible care for them. And actually, to me, that's one of the pros of being in emergency medicine is if I have the honor to take care of someone who is really having the worst day, whether it's them or their family member, but it is a privilege to be there in that space with them. I went into emergency medicine in a lot of ways because I wanted to be able to handle any situation. I never wanted to be the person who saw something happen to someone else and didn't know how to deal with it. I never wanted to be the person on like a plane where they call overhead, is there a doctor? And I'm like, oh, well, I am, but I don't know how to take care of whatever emergency it is. Like, I just never wanted to be that person. So that's one of the things that still makes me really love being in the emergency department to this day is that I do feel like I can handle anything. It's kind of like a weird thing to say, but it is really a really cool thing to be able to say and do. And then because I work in the academic setting, not just to think that, oh, I can handle it, but to then transmit that to others and give them the confidence of, no, like you can do this too. I wasn't born with like a magical talent or anything like that. This is all learned and you too can do this. Something that I really like about EM is that we make really fast decisions with very little information. And I know that this is something that probably would make other people very uncomfortable, other people in other specialties. But it's kind of a special talent that, we get ourselves comfortable with making major decisions with often very little. And by the time other specialties, other consultants get involved, we usually have more information, but we don't in the beginning. We can have nothing in the beginning and we're doing things. And so that has really fine-tuned my ability to be present and be aware and pick up on every little thing using really most of my senses. Obviously not taste. I'm never going to taste anything. But, it's like you're listening, you're looking, you're feeling, you're really just paying attention. And to me, I think being present and aware is the first step in everything in life. Be aware of what's going on around you. that's like a lesson from the ER that carries into everything. And, I say I use my intuition a lot, and I use my intuition to even just think, oh, I want to go into emergency medicine. But really, intuition is a muscle that we all have. And being in the ED has helped me work out that muscle a lot. One of the simplest questions that I think all of us who work in the ED ask ourselves many times a day is this person sick or not sick? Sick or not sick? It sounds so simple, but it is like a really difficult question. You ask yourself this every day, multiple times a day for thousands of shifts, and that gets so fine-tuned, and that's often the thing we're trying to figure out the most, sick or not sick. So I love walking into a room first glance, and I can be like, this person is sick, or you know what, they're not sick. That has helped fine-tune my intuition in a lot of ways. When I speak of intuition, it's just this muscle of being hyper aware and hyper present and noticing every little thing. When I think about emergency medicine, one of the things that is super special that I've noticed in the last 20 years of doing this is that it is a real team sport. Other medical specialties may be individual sports to like some degree, or really, really hyper hierarchical. I mean, let's face it, nothing really is an individual sport, but EM specifically is a true team sport. One of the reasons why I came back to work at my hospital specifically after fellowship was because I missed the team. And it wasn't just like the doctors and the PAs and nurse practitioners, but I really missed like all the nurses. I missed the nurses the most because our nurses ask questions, they're involved, they're thinking, they're like, we're together. We're in it together. And I really miss that. One of the reasons why I say I'm a lifer in my current ED, like I don't really have an interest in working anywhere else, is because of that team. Like I love the team. I just think they're the best. And speaking of the team, you get to work with your friends every day. Now, during COVID, we were scared. That's could be its own episode of what we went through during the COVID pandemic. The world was on lockdown. We were terrified, especially hearing about ER doctors and nurses who were dying. And yet we had to leave our families and go into work not knowing, is our PPE going to be enough? What's going to happen? I mean, we really did not know in the beginning what we were dealing with. And yet, we got to go to work and hang out with our friends and actually hang out because our volumes were so down because everybody was scared to come to the ER unless they were really, really sick. We had a few months where not a lot of people were coming in. It was in kind of when peak COVID hit the East Coast. So that's like March, April 2020. It hadn't really hit the West Coast yet. And so those few months, people were scared to come in, and we actually ended up bonding, I feel, even tighter as a team because we were just together sitting around all shift. So that's like an interesting little thing, but it's really cool to be able to go to work with your friends and know that, hey, if I have a question about something or I need a second opinion, I can just call up one of my friends and they'll walk over to them and we can help each other out. I think that anybody who's in academic medicine, no matter what specialty you're in, let's be honest, you take a pay cut to do it. You take a pay cut to have the honor to teach. And you also work really hard because you're trying to do research and publish and, do all these teaching activities the same time. So it's really not just shift work. A lot of my work is outside of my shifts. But, being an academic emergency physician is so special because, at least for me, I feel more excited now if somebody that I taught how to do a procedure gets that procedure right than if I even did it on my own. Like somebody got like a hard central line or art line, or got a difficult airway, did a cricothyrotomy, which is when you cut the neck to put breathing tube in when you have no other option. I mean, these things, like if I'm there teaching someone else at the bedside how to do it and they do it, it's just so gratifying. It's so exciting. And just to see them gain that confidence, it's just so cool. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but it also isn't those big things. Again, the best things are the intangibles. So maybe you were the one that gave that person the confidence for that next same case that they have, or in the next days or weeks or months. Like, you don't know how you're affecting people. For example, I was saying, I was at a reunion recently, and one of the guys said that this one shift I had with him, which I totally remember, even though it was 10 years ago or over 10 years ago, I totally remember it. And he said, oh, that was his first shift being in the critically ill patient area. And he was terrified the night before. He felt like he was going to have a panic attack because he was so nervous. And I remember, feeling the same way. I remember those nerves. But that first shift was with me, and we actually did have some pretty crazy cases. And one of them was a really difficult case that I still remember. And we got through it. We got through it together. And he said that after that, he just was so happy that I was the one that gave him that confidence. And then he felt like, okay, I can do this, and just kind of carried that with him. And I had no idea until 2 weeks ago that over 10 years ago, I had anything to do with his confidence, which is amazing because he's wonderful and he's like the most confident seeming, awesome ER doctor. But it's like, you just don't know that day you did something for that person that they can still remember. And then also being the right role model for someone, just showing them like the right way of how things should be done, just like the best way. It's really like a special thing for people to allow you to teach them. I realized I've been talking for a while. I could go on and on, but I'm going to try to wrap it up. Turns out, lo and behold, I am a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So I actually do really love it when shit hits the fan. Those that, I guess, knew me in childhood or grew up with me probably wouldn't believe this. But yeah, I kind of love the chaos. Being in the ED has helped me to find my voice and actually use it, because, if you're leading a resuscitation room, you need to have a calm, confident, cool, knowledgeable voice. And nothing has helped me to find and use my voice more than being an ER doctor. And it's a place where I feel like I'm really able to be my true self. Like, I am my authentic self when I'm at work. I don't know how many people could say that about their jobs, but over the years, I've really just been my authentic self. I feel like that's all I can be, and that's been really helpful. Also, if you want funny, crazy, dramatic stories, it is the place to be. I get to collect stories that I'm a part of. It is actually kind of fun to have those stories and tell them, and I really wouldn't have chosen any other specialty. And this is despite truly knowing very little about it going in. I'm happy I trusted my intuition. Now I'm 20 years in. I don't see myself leaving working in the ER anytime soon. And that's not to say that it's not very difficult. It can be very grueling. But, I'm a real glass half full kind of person. And so I just try to find the little things, little stories, little tidbits, little wins that just keep me going and bring me joy with every shift. And so yeah, 20 years in EM. Let's see what I've got left in me. No, I have a lot left in me. But thanks for listening, everyone. And if you have comments, please message me, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Please like, subscribe, share, and download the podcast. And again, you can find us at Human School Podcast on Instagram. I'd like to thank Dr. Zach Effron for the theme music. And I'd just like to make a general disclaimer that any of the institutions I work for, including Community Regional Medical Center, UCSF Fresno, and American Ambulance, have nothing to do with any of my thoughts or opinions, and so we'll kindly leave them out of this. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.